The Valley of Shadows had always drawn attention, despite the fact that people tried to avoid it. It was said that deep within the mountains lay something that neither science nor logic could explain. Yet sometimes, people would return from there, unable to utter a word about what they had seen. These stories terrified all who heard them, and only the most daring adventurers decided to venture there. One such adventurer was Igor, a geologist who had dedicated his life to studying the unexplored corners of the planet. He was a man of science, and his entire existence was built on attempts to unravel the mysteries of nature. But the Valley of Shadows occupied a special place in his mind. Many years ago, when he was still a student, he had heard about it from his professor, a man known for not fearing either mysteries or enigmas. The professor disappeared without a trace after setting out for the valley, and since then, Igor could not stop thinking about that place. He prepared for the expedition for a long time, gathering all the information he could find. Stories, legends, old maps, all these pieces formed a strange mosaic in which logic intertwined with mysticism. Igor decided that it was his duty to finally understand what was hidden in the Valley of Shadows. The expedition began early in the morning, when the mist still blanketed the ground. Along with Igor, several of his colleagues, experienced researchers, set out. They were ready for anything, but none of them could predict what they would face. The first day of the journey passed calmly. The forest around the valley was dense but not particularly dangerous. However, as the group drew closer to the valley, nature began to change. The trees grew taller, the branches thicker, and the light barely penetrated through them. It was as if nature itself was trying to hide the valley from prying eyes. Finally, the researchers reached the Valley of Shadows. It turned out to be much wider than Igor had imagined. Its bottom was covered with a thick carpet of grass, and steep slopes rose on the sides. But the strangest thing was that despite the clear sky above, the valley was always in semi-darkness. It was as if an invisible shadow hung over this place. The group set up camp at the foot of one of the slopes. At first glance, the valley seemed lifeless, but Igor knew that this was only an illusion. His journals contained notes about strange sounds emanating from the depths of the valley at night, and about people feeling an unknown presence following them. Night fell quickly, and with it came the first signs that the Valley of Shadows was not just a beautiful place. The wind, which had been calm until then, began to pick up speed, howling through the trees. Sounds reminiscent of rustling came from different directions, and the researchers involuntarily listened to them. Igor tried not to give it much thought, attributing everything to nerves, but a deep sense of unease did not leave him. The next morning began with an unpleasant discovery. One of the group members, Alexei, had disappeared without a trace. His belongings remained in place, but he himself had vanished as if into thin air. Searching for him was futile. The valley seemed to have swallowed him. The others began to panic, but Igor insisted on continuing the research. He was convinced that the answer to Alexei's disappearance lay somewhere in the depths of this mysterious valley. They continued their journey deeper into the valley, moving further away from the camp. With each step, Igor felt increasing pressure, as if an unknown force was trying to make them turn back. Nevertheless, he felt they were close to solving the mystery. On the third day, they discovered something strange: an enormous stone circle, clearly man-made. The stones, towering above the ground, were covered in ancient symbols that none of them could decipher. In the center of the circle was a deep well, from which a cold, ominous wind blew. Igor realized that this was the heart of the Valley of Shadows. He decided that he needed to descend into the well, despite the danger. His colleagues tried to dissuade him, but he was adamant. Descending down, he found himself in a dark, damp cave whose walls were covered with the same symbols as the stones above. Moving further and further in, Igor discovered an underground lake, its waters appearing endlessly dark. On its shore lay old bones, the remains of those who had likely also tried to unravel the valley's mystery, but had not been able to return. But the most terrifying thing lay ahead. On the other side of the lake, he saw something that resembled a portal, a massive round hole in the wall of the cave, from which a bright but sinister light emanated. It was mesmerizing and terrifying at the same time. Igor felt that this portal was the reason for all the disappearances and strange phenomena in the valley. He knew that his discovery would change the understanding of the world, but he also realized that he could not leave this place as it was. The portal needed to be closed, or else the evil hidden behind it could break free. But he had neither the tools nor the knowledge to do so. Gathering all his strength, Igor returned to his companions. He told them what he had found and suggested that they try to close the portal together. They were willing to do anything to get out of this place alive. Returning to the cave, they began searching for a way to destroy the portal. Using the explosives found in the camp, Igor and his team placed them around the stone circle. Each knew that if their plan failed, they might not leave the valley alive. The moment of truth arrived. The sound of the explosion shattered the valley's silence, and it seemed as if time itself stopped for a moment. The portal began to tremble, and bright flames erupted from it, engulfing the entire cave. The ground beneath their feet trembled. The cave walls began to crack and crumble. Igor and his team ran for the exit, but the path back was obstructed by debris. When they finally emerged to the surface, the Valley of Shadows began to change. The wind died down, the darkness began to recede, and for the first time they saw sunlight breaking through the treetops. But the valley was no longer the same. The earth was scarred, and where the stone circle had stood, there was now only a massive crater. Igor and his team left the valley, carrying with them terrifying memories. They realized that despite the success of their mission, the evil had not completely disappeared, but merely subsided for a time. They swore never to return there again, and to tell no one about what had happened. But Igor knew that one day, someone would find this path again, and the Valley of Shadows would open its doors to those brave enough to unravel its mystery.